Guyana, get ready for a night of nostalgic and classical hits as the PNCR presents a grand oldies party on Saturday, November 30th at Congress Place Fire, featuring Super Ray One-Man Band, Big P One-Man Band, and Determined Family. Join us on Saturday, November 30th at Congress Place Fire. Don't miss this night of unforgettable tunes and timeless memories. Admission is just $1,000. There will be a well-stocked bar and finger foods available. Come out and support this event.
The fire burning red in a Georgia representing of a comes hard here. You know. Big up Kidaki, Buxton massive. Hey Babylon boy, you go on like come son. Red.
Never Joe, never Joe, never Joe. Oh, money, never money, never money, money, never money, money. Now know what you can I be money. Money, never money, money. You can keep your conniving money. When you've been up for a bum, in a business be money. Now because your money done, you come with conniving money. When you had your pocket full, in a business be money. Now because your money done, you hustle to tell me money. Yes, money, never money, never money, money, never money, money. Now know what you conniving money. Neighbor joker, neighbor joker, neighbor joker. That's all the money that me walk for. A 2 pound note and a kill that piece. A 2 pound note and a kill that piece. A 2 pound note and a kill that piece. This is all the money that me walk for. I said money, neighbor, money, money. I know what you can I be money. Oh, Joseph.
Guyana and Guyanese, at home and abroad. Tune in the Guyanese Morning Time, hosted by Kadaki Amsterdam, where the sun always shines. Guyanese Morning Time, the people call it Guyanese Morning Time. Rhythm, Guyanese Morning Time. Intelligence and knowledge run the front line. We go again, Guyanese Morning Time. The people call it Guyanese Morning Time. Rhythm, Guyanese Morning Time. Intelligence and knowledge run the front line. We go again. We rise up early morning watching Comes TV, where wisdom and knowledge, yes, it is the key. Exposing corruption over land and sea, where the wicked politicians they try to trick me. Guyana is a land for everybody. With 6 races should live in harmony. Is one set of people getting oil money. Is one set of people doing the thievery. Beep. Guyanese Morning Time. The people calling Guyanese Morning Time. Rhythm, Guyanese Morning Time. Intelligence and knowledge run the front line. We go again, Guyanese Morning Time. The people calling Guyanese Morning Time. Rhythm, Guyanese Morning Time. Intelligence and knowledge run the front line. We go again. This is a program that you all can see, sharing your views and your integrity. Like it, comment and share it all around. Pass it to your neighbor, safe and sound. A sad situation going on in this town. The voice of the people is getting trampled down. Out of the mouths of babes and sucklings, which as ordained me to sing. I sing Guyanese Morning Time. The people calling Guyanese Morning Time. Rhythm, Guyanese Morning Time. Intelligence and knowledge run the front line. We go again, Guyanese Morning Time. The people calling Guyanese Morning Time. Rhythm, Guyanese Morning Time. Intelligence and knowledge run the front line. We go again, fooling the people. You're promoting evil. Stop lying to the people. You are a part of the cycle. Stop fooling people. You're promoting evil. Stop lying to the people. You are a part of the cycle. I say Guyanese Morning Time. The people calling Guyanese Morning Time. Rhythm, Guyanese Morning Time. Intelligence and knowledge run the front line. We go again, Guyanese Morning Time. The people calling Guyanese Morning Time. Rhythm, Guyanese Morning Time. Intelligence and knowledge knowledge run the front line. We go again, we got Breakford, Bork and Mark Benchcop, David Hines and Kadaki Amsterdam, Sherrod Duncan, Nigel London, Normal Brown and Gavin Matthews. Big up Paslow, Port People Governor, Simona Brooms, Robin Simpson, Hampton Green and Winston Jordan. And yes, we can go right on and on. Guyanese morning time, the people calling Guyanese morning time. Rhythm, Guyanese morning time. Intelligence and knowledge run the front line. We go again, Guyanese morning time. The people calling Guyanese morning time. Rhythm, Guyanese morning time. Intelligence and knowledge run the front line. We go again.
The relatives and friends of young Wyndon Bacchus, they deserve justice. The family, the relatives and friends of our in Boston, they deserve justice. The family, the relatives and friends of Peter Headley, they deserve justice.
And so when we say that Guyana is an apartheid state, we have the evidence to show.
Are you planning your next visit to Oil Ridge, Guyana, South America? Well, let's accommodate you at Varon's Cheerful Country Manor. With free secured on-premises parking, our beautiful vacation air-conditioned home offers 3 beds, 2 bathrooms, a spacious kitchen, and all modern amenities. Located at Tushen, on the eastern bank of the mighty Essequibo and the western coast of Demerara, Varon's Cheerful Country Manor is just a stone throw from the ocean. Make that reservation now on Airbnb and VRBO. For contact, call us on 516-770-3053 or 592-685-3521. Make Varon's Cheerful Country Manor your home away from home.
It's karaoke and oldies night this and every Thursday with Al Christie and popular DJs at Club Twilight Sideline down Buxton North.
Here, trust me, if you are on the East Coast, you're in Buxton, you're in Tongue, you're looking for a place to get away to, this is the place. The gutters, mwah. And then, of course, the ambience is beautiful, fully air conditioned. The decor is on point, the music's on point, everything's on point. So if you want to find a nice little place, or you can just drive out of town and have some drinks, have some food, you can call, you can order your stuff and just take it. You don't have to stay. Or if you want to stay here, that's what's up. And of course, they have special events for Valentine's. You can rent a hall. You can rent a hall, honey. You can rent a hall for weddings, for birthday parties, to have a bash. I hope he edits that out. But you know, whatever it is, this is definitely the place to be. So it's on Sideline Dam. You definitely want to ensure that you check this place out. But it's on your to-do list. All right, on your to-do list. This is definitely the place to check out, you know, a really cool, chill spot here in Buxton. I like this. Buxton needed this. We needed this. I needed this. You definitely need it too.
Don't be a victim. Beat the heat with EC Crystals. Party ice in large and small quantities. Call 682-7981 or visit us at Club Twilight Sideline Dam, Buxton North. EC Crystals, pure party ice.
Guyana, get ready for a night of nostalgic and classical hits as the PNCR presents a grand oldies party on Saturday, November 30th at Congress Place Fire, featuring Super Ray one-man band, Big P one-man band, and Determined Family. Join us on Saturday, November 30th at Congress Place Sophia. Don't miss this night of unforgettable tunes and timeless memories. Admission is just $1,000. There will be a well-stocked bar and finger foods available. Come out and support this event.
Comes out your son. You burn this wine when I want you shine. The tree of life, them I want you climb, cause them heart no kind. Comes, I say them heart no kind. Buxton Massive, Kidaki, Red Hat.
You can get meat anywhere, but for the best cuts of chicken, beef, pork, mutton, and lots more, check out T and W Harris Butcher Shop located in the East Rheinveld Market Meat section. Call us on 609-7168, 641-4494. Ask for Rastaman. T and W Harris Butcher Shop for the best in fresh cut meats and lots more.
Kidaki, Amsterdam. It is now 7 hours 27 on the 20th day of November in the year 2024. I am your host, Kidaki Amsterdam. How you been? How was your yesterday? How was your last night? How you make out this morning? Talk to me. How you feeling? What has given you hope that Ghana could be a better place? What has given you hope that the citizens of this country will eventually get a taste of the oil money through direct cash transfer as proposed by the Working People's Alliance? Y'all talk to me. What's happening? I hope you've been able to stay safe. You and your relatives and friends have been able to stay safe on the roadways. We have a killing field in this country. Every day is another accident. Every day somebody is losing their lives or almost losing their lives on the road. We as citizens, we have a responsibility to be better road users. I was tempted to say reduce the speed, but there is no speed on our roads. I tell you that. I quite frankly believe that the speed limit is decadent. But many of our drivers are illiterate. Or ignorant, I should say. They're not necessarily illiterate, ignorant. They don't know the rules of the road. And from they don't know the rules of the road, they're going to always find themselves in problems. I remember a few weekends ago, I was driving into the city. And here is this young goon. I can't call him anything other than that. I have the car number, the registration number of the vehicle written down somewhere. Undertaking me. When you're undertaking, Guyan, is when you overtake somebody on the left-hand side. If that person is in the left-hand lane and you proceed to overtake them on the left-hand side, then you are undertaking them because Guyan is a left-hand drive road. And so if you want to pass me, rightfully you should be passing me on the right-hand side. Not on my left. If I'm on the leftmost side of the road. No. If I'm in the right-hand lane and the left-hand lane is clear, then you can pass me there. But if I'm in the left-hand lane, I don't know you could pass me for the left. And so here's this young goon attempting to overtake me, and I just held my lane and I keep going my way. And the man was in a rage. The man was in a rage, as if I had done him any wrong. And this is the kind of arrogance, ignorance that, leads to a lot of the issues we have on the road. People use the road and they don't even understand the rules of the road. But when do we start to teach road use and give people road users the education, let me call it that, in schools? Well, not even in schools, quite frankly. You only hear about road safety when you have road safety week. That's the only time a lot of people go to the schools and they do lectures on road safety and so on. We don't teach our children even proper use of the road. Every day I cringe because I see even adults teaching the children the wrong thing. A pedestrian crossing is 10 feet away, but an adult is crossing the children away from the pedestrian crossing. Or an adult is even crossing the road away from the pedestrian crossing. We are setting poor examples and we're not educating our road users. And that will continue to be a problem in this society. Like it is when we are selling driver's licenses to people who, as what people say, would see the name on a cake and eat it. Because they're illiterate, they can't read, they can't write. But they, over the years, have won enough money to buy a license. And so we gleefully sell a license to them because of the corrupt practices in this society. So many people argue that speed is what causes the accidents on the road. I dare argue with you and say that it is more than speed. I heard somebody calling to call Mosley's program yesterday, referencing that gruesome accident. I call it gruesome because that is what I see it as. Fatal accident in Sheriff Street yesterday with the two trucks, or the truck, the pedestrian, and the buildings and everything. And he said he was a standard by, let me call it that, and he saw this truck speeding down the road and tooting its horn. Right, speeding down the road and tooting its horn, only to end up in this accident because some other truck attempted to cross over at a speed and they collided. I think, based on what I understand, the caller saying, the one that maybe was heading north struck the one heading east or east to west, whatever it was. Sometimes I ask this question. So I asked myself this question when I heard that. Could it be the one that was on the main recognized that there were mechanical troubles with his vehicle, and so he was trying to alert people to get out of the way? We wouldn't know, would we? Or even if that were the case, we didn't take him seriously because why? Drivers on our roads are always blaring their horns. You would be at a traffic signal, the light will say stop, and as soon as it changes to green, go. Everybody behind you, pop, 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 pop. You don't have to change a gear. You don't have to take a vehicle out of neutral and put it back in drive or whatever. You must just automatically fly through the light once it turns green. Split-second reaction, right? That is an indication of the chaos that we're living in this country. Poor examples from government ministers and representatives, because they too blare their sirens. In many instances, there is no emergency, but sirens are blaring because what? They are the lords of lords. They can lord it over us. They are above towing the line, as I would say. From the smallest minion of the government to the largest. We're going to continue to have these issues because we are an indisciplined society. And that is because the people who lead are themselves indisciplined. Good morning, welcome to the program. It's 25 minutes past the 8 o'clock hour. It's Tuesday, it's Wednesday as a matter of fact, and we're going to have Dr. David Hines on the program. Professor David Hines, he's in the house already. And we're going to be talking about a number of things. And so let me start. I want to start by playing a little video snippet of that accident or the accident scene on Sheriff Street yesterday, so that you can have a first-hand look of why I consider.
Just show you how the scale of this thing. Like I
right.
Man, under the truck, right? Man, white shit, I'm like clean over for me. Right? That's the scale of this thing. There's Dennis and Sheriff Street, Dennis and Sheriff Street, all of this way. I just show you how the scale of this thing. Like that's a man under the truck, right? Man, white shit, I'm like clean over for me. Right? That's the scale of this thing. There's Dennis and Sheriff Street, Dennis and Sheriff Street, all of this way. That's a man under the truck, right? Man, white shit, I'm like clean over for me. Right? That's the scale of this thing. There's Dennis and Sheriff Street, Dennis and Sheriff Street, all of this way. All of this way. Like he lost a truck into the thing. And watch. Let me show you how the scale of this thing. Right? He come here, this is Julie Lane.
Do you know where he fucked down as he coming along? Sorry for my language. What is scale of this thing? I walking going to this. Me no go for car this time. These memorable events look like he splashed pan or wherever it is down here. Is your far walking? Look how far he walking. Look where he there. Walk down a building. Nino Vainani. Nino, this is not the sleep, this is what? Look at Vainani. Look at walking Vainani. Look at Vainani. Is a car in there?
Yeah, one is there, one is up there.
How much people there? The car. Look what he do. Look what he do. Look what he do, man. A car up in there. A car up in there. Watch what he do. You see how far he walking from? Look what he do. Look what going on here. Look what going on here. I moved for me before. I electric bias the end place. That's what he do. Watch what he do. Watch what he do. That's what he do. This is what he do. This green building. Sheriff Street played the phone. Wow.
Yes, so you've seen it for yourself. You've seen it for yourself. That video alone raises a whole number of questions in my mind, and reminds us that when the government decided that they were going to convert the railway embankment, for example, into some 4-lane road, one of the concerns I, along with others, raised is the closeness of people's home to the road. If a vehicle were to, as we like to say, run off the road, that's a prime example of what happens there. There is no real protection, no real safe zone between people's homes and the roadways. And that, for me, spells tremendous dangers to people's lives and property. But as we like to say, you know, them by in charge, them by could do what them by want do, or what them by think is best to do. Had there been a safe zone, a wide enough parapet, the possibility is the trucker might have been able to veer off safely without causing injury to anybody. But let's continue to build superhighways 10 feet away from people's homes. And we're going to continue to have the kind of carnage that we are having. Professor David Hines, welcome to the program. How are you doing?
Good morning. And good morning to your audience.
So what's going on? What's new? How are you?
I am fine, thanks.
Good, very well. I don't think we talked last week about the issues. No, there was a little mix-up in terms of getting you that link and so on and so forth. And so it's here we are. Lots of things are still on the front burner. I know top of the list right now is elections and GECOMs and the GECOM and the joint opposition parties and so on and so forth. By way of update, I am hearing talk, and we are hearing talk now of joint opposition parties. Not so long ago, we know that the cry was, you know, it is time for the opposition parties to speak with one voice. It is time for some show of unity among the opposition parties. This talk of joint opposition party indicated is an indication that that status quo has changed.
Well, I'm not sure what you mean by the status quo, but the joint opposition parties is really the PNC, APNU, the AFC and the WPA have been meeting for the last 2 or 3 weeks on the issue of free and fair elections, in particular biometrics, clean voters list, and what's happening at GECOM in terms of impartiality. So the meetings have a limited agenda. I don't know if that is a change in the status quo, but that's where things are. We meet weekly, once per week for now, on the issue of free and fair elections.
Good. And so you're having this what I want to call meeting of the minds on free and fair elections. And the demands are continuously made. The joint opposition parties continue to call for a clean voters list and biometrics, and continue to call on Claudette Singh to be an impartial arbiter as chairman of the Elections Commission. I noticed Jagdeo not recently coming out in our defense. I'm sure you heard the sentiments. What are your take? What is your take on those sentiments and Claudette Singh's continued, what I might say, partisan behavior at GECOM?
Well, I mean, if Mr. Jagdeo and the PPP are defending the chairperson, it means that they are comfortable with what she's doing. They are benefiting from what she's doing. So that is a very clear message. If they were not benefiting from what she's doing, they would not have come out. In our defense, if we go back to 2015, after the PPP lost, they came out strongly against Surge Bali and called for Surge Bali's resignation. They had lost confidence in him because, among other things, they had asked Mr. Surge Bali for a recount or a partial recount of the votes, that some votes. They wanted him to do a recount of some sample boxes, and he didn't go along with that, and they called for his resignation. In this instance, the shoe is on the other foot, and they are quite comfortable with this chairperson. Mr. Suraj Bali's approach was that he did not use his cast and vote as chairman. He sought to have a consensus between the two sides whenever there was sharp disagreement. This chairperson, she votes with one side. I was about to say one side or the other, but she votes mostly with one side, and 90% of the time with one side. So her approach is different from the Suraj Bali approach. And the PPP obviously is comfortable with her approach. You know, if he used the vote evenly, you know, voted in some instances with one side and some instances with the other side. There might still have been complaints, but the complaints would not have been as strident as they are, because she could have argued, look, I'm even-handed. But in this instance, she's not. And so the PPP is obviously very comfortable with her approach, and they've come out in defense, in our defense. I can't remember the coalition coming out in defense of Surge Bali. They stayed away from that. I may be wrong, but I can't remember any of the opposition parties coming out so stridently in defense of Surge Bali. It's, in such a situation, the parties want to not to overly give the impression that they are comfortable with the chair, especially since she's voting so many times with one side. And Mr. Jagdeo doing that smacks of collusion. Even if there is no collusion, I am not arguing that there is collusion, but Jagdeo's defense of her, his staunch defense of her, leads one to come to the conclusion that maybe there is intentional collusion. So that is the conclusion that one could draw from a strong defense of her.
And so since a whole lot what should I say, dependent on the behavior, a whole lot in relation to having free, fair, and credible elections, biometrics and a clean voters list and so on, to strengthen the possibility of free, fair, and clear elections, is dependent on what happens at GECOM. And by extension, what the way Khaled Singh votes. Where does that leave the opposition parties in terms of getting GECOM to, I would say, grant the demands for, first and foremost, a clean voters list, and secondly, biometrics? I understand yesterday they were supposed to be voting on that issue. I don't know if you have any information as to what transpired at that meeting, but where does it leave the opposition?
No, I don't have any information what transpired at the meeting. Look, there is no appetite for bipartisanship. When you have a partisan commission, as we have, there has to be a commitment to bipartisanship. Back in 1990, there was a commitment to bipartisanship. President Carter came and the two sides went to the table, and there was a commitment to bipartisanship, and he was able to broker an agreement based on that commitment to bipartisanship. And when the issue was raised that there was not enough time for the reforms to be put in place, because the agreement was widespread, not widespread. The agreement was it covered a lot of issues: a clean voters list, getting rid of people voting overseas, getting rid of central counting of the votes and making sure that the votes are counted at the place of poll. It was comprehensive. That's the word I was looking for. And so there was not enough time to do all the constitutional changes and the household registration to get a clean voters list. And there was a call for extension. Mr. Hoyt was doing what the president should have done, and he was saying, look, there is a constitutional deadline for elections, and I'm going ahead with that constitutional deadline. The PPP wavered. I think they were prepared to go. And Brother Yussi Kwayano went on a hunger strike, calling for a delay in the election so that the reforms can be put in place. And that action brought the parties again to the table. And everybody agreed for an extension. There was a two-year extension. The WP had proposed that in the 2 years, that there should not be a one-party government since the PNC's time was over, and that we should have an all-party government, an all-party interim government. The PPP wasn't in favor of it. They said that they didn't think White would have agreed. But the WPA could go to the PNC and hear what they say. And the WPA met with the PNC, and the PNC agreed to an interim government. The PPP didn't agree, so there was no interim government. So the PNC remained in office for that period of time. But I give that little bit of history to say that at that moment, there was a commitment to bipartisanship. There's no commitment to bipartisanship now. The opposition parties have indicated that they would do whatever it takes to ensure that the necessary safeguards are put in place. Mr. Norton has said that whatever legislation needs to be passed, he is prepared to go along with it. We in the WPA have said that if there is not enough time between now and when the elections are due, we would not stand in the way of an extension, a short extension to accommodate the reforms. So there is some commitment on the part of the opposition parties to ensuring that all the safeguards are put in place. But there's no commitment from the PPP. And so in a situation where there's no commitment, no bipartisan commitment, we are left with an impasse. And I don't know what is going to happen. I don't know how that impasse is going to be broken. The PPP is adamant. They have said that they do not want to go one day beyond the stipulated time for elections. They are arguing that biometrics cannot be enacted without constitutional reform, not a mere statute, not a mere passing of a law in Parliament. Nandal is arguing, and Ralph Ramkaran, this past weekend, today's papers, I think the Stabrook News, carry that story. Both of them are arguing that there has to be constitutional reform and that there's no time to change the Constitution to accommodate biometrics. The argument is that biometrics flies in the face of the Constitution, because the Constitution is very clear about the requirements for voting. We are arguing, at least my argument, and I think Vincent Alexander is making the same argument, that look, the Constitution, while it doesn't say that biometrics should be a requirement, nowhere in the Constitution does it say that you can't use biometrics. So there are the two arguments. My own view, and I think Vincent's view, is that you can have a simple law passed in Parliament to get the use of biometrics. The PPP say, no, you have to have constitutional reform. The point is, they're saying you have to have constitutional reform, but they're saying there's no time, there's not enough time for constitutional reform. So we have to go without biometrics. That is their argument. And our argument is that there's no need for constitutional reform. But if there is need for constitutional reform, let's get going with it. If there is a bipartisan commitment to change the Constitution, let's get on with it. But clearly the PPP doesn't want to change the status quo. They do not want to change the status quo. And so we have an impasse. We have an impasse.
An impasse indeed. I understand that impasse is continuing even at GECOM itself, because the commissioners, at least the opposition nominated commissioners, are insisting that the discourses, process of deciding on whether or not GECOM will go the way of biometrics must include the stakeholders, that is the opposition political parties, the governing political party, maybe civil society, and so on. And at the level of GECOM, the position right now, perhaps supported by that 4-3 PPP free ballot thing, is that it's not necessary. The commission must make the decision and then involve the stakeholders. You're taking that hard line, if I can call it that.
Well, yeah, they're putting up every obstacle. Because if you go to the stakeholders, it will take time. And they're arguing that we have no time for that. Let the commission think. Look, this matter will have to be resolved politically, one way or the other. You know, I do not see any other way out. Coming out of the 2020 elections, there were two complaints. One complaint from the PPP that there was an attempt through the tabulation of the votes in Region 4 that the opposition, along with Mr. Mingo, attempted to tamper with the tabulation of Region 4 votes. This then led to a recount. Coming out of the recount, the coalition charged that there was vote impersonation and other anomalies that occurred on and before election day. So there were two complaints from the two major contestants. Now, if you were GECOM, you wanted to investigate those two complaints because they're coming from the two major players. The PPP, once they were installed in office, they moved to the courts. Well, they got the police to charge the people who were accused of interfering with the tabulation of the votes in Region 4. There was no attempt to charge anybody for the vote impersonation and other irregularities that the coalition unearthed. No, that's the government. And the government, of course, is not going to move to charge itself. But GECOM, as an impartial body, should have investigated both complaints. Now, you can say the opposition commissioners, meaning the coalition commissioners, would not have been interested in investigating the complaints that were made against their members. And the PPP would not have been interested in investigating the complaints against their members. But the chair of GECOM, who should be impartial, should have said, look, the complaints came from both sides. And she should have casted her vote to investigate the complaints of both sides by doing a GECOM investigation. Instead of doing that, she said, if the opposition has complaints, it should go to a petition. But fine, yes, they should go to a petition. But you as GECOM can't wait on a petition to investigate complaints about something that you are constitutionally charged with doing. And so the failure to investigate voter impersonation meant that nothing from GECOM's standpoint was done over the last 4 years to deal with voter impersonation. So here we are, on the eve of the election, with GECOM not investigating this charge. Had they investigated the charge, and had they found that indeed there was voter impersonation, whether it was voter impersonation by one person, that was enough to put remedies in place. Because it did not do an internal investigation, it could not put any remedy in place. So here we are on the eve of the election with one side calling for biometrics, the other side saying no to biometrics, and the chair going along with the other side. So it's a dereliction of duty on the part of GECOM, meaning on the part of the chair, because we have a partisan commission. And the chair, she has the power to break the partisanship. And she didn't. She went along with the other side. And so the impasse that we have now is as a result of GECOM not doing its own investigation. Yes, the government has charged opposition people. The opposition, meaning the coalition, had filed 2 petitions which were thrown out. But those acts should not have prevented GECOM from doing its own internal investigations. Because had it done so, it would have put things in place to ensure, if it found that there was voter impersonation, to put things in place to prevent voter impersonation. And obviously, it would have had to look at the PPP's charge of mistabulation. And if it was found that that occurred, then GECOM would have been mandated to put things in place to prevent that from happening also. But the failure to investigate means that we are going into an election without any corrective measures on the part of GECOM to deal with the complaints from the 2 sides. Now, the PPP side, they are saying it was an attempt to rig an election, an attempt by Mingo and others. And they are in office. So their complaints was taken care of. But the complaints of the other side, that is the coalition side, was not taken care of, has not been taken care of. And so therefore, the responsibility for this impasse has to be borne by the chairperson.
A political solution. I noticed that the efforts at protest, let me say, are coming together in that the joint opposition parties are now out there. I think this is about the 3rd week that they've come together and are out there in slightly larger numbers than previous, continuing to call for biometrics and a clean voters list. Given this argument of time, this paucity of time, we ain't got time to change the constitution. We ain't got time to consult with the stakeholders. Can we really hope and believe that the changes that are necessary to guarantee these free, fair, and credible elections will take place? And if they don't take place, what are the options left to Guyanese?
I don't know. You are asking me to predict. It's an impasse. It's an impasse. And it has to be, the impasse has to be broken one way or the other.
But Kwame took but you see took to the streets in the form of protests, hunger strike. Do you believe even that quote unquote extreme measure will shift GECOM?
I don't know, Brother Kidaki. I said at the beginning that in the case of 1990, there was a commitment to bipartisan action. There is no commitment to bipartisan action. And when there is no commitment to bipartisan action, you have an impasse. And when you have an impasse, then there's no commitment to come to the table and settle the impasse. The impasse will have to be settled by other means. And you are asking me to say those other means here, and I'm not going to say it because I don't want to get you in trouble.
What informed that commitment in 1992? Was it the
political actors? The political actors at the time were mature political actors.
So the international community had little or no role to play in
President Carter came here and he brokered an agreement. That was itself, that he brought the two sides to the table. It showed that there was a commitment to solve the problem. So there was a commitment to bipartisan action.
Do you see any efforts from the international community currently to intervene in this impasse?
I don't know. If the international committee sees that it is important for them to step in, that is one option. That is what I'm saying. Sometimes you have to let a struggle take its course. You're asking me to get in front of the struggle, and I can't do that, right? I'm saying there is an impasse. It has to be broken one way or the other, right? The press was asking us this weekend on Monday, if there is no biometrics, what will happen? Well, no, we are saying there must be biometrics. We are not getting in front. Are you going to contest if you don't get biometrics? I don't know. We have an impasse, and it has to be settled by bipartisan commitment. If one side is saying we are not wanting to settle, then it will have to take its course, and I don't want to say what that course is going to be, because I don't want to get you in trouble. You're already in trouble with people saying things on your program that the so-called cybercrime will come on. But our listeners are mature enough to know what I am hinting at. And you don't have to get me to say, because they're going to say, you know, Dave, look what they're saying about Norton. When Norton make a simple statement, look, there are people who are given ID cards who should not get ID cards, and so should not be voting. And if they show up, my people are going to think them. You hear the furrow right away with that. There are people, the PPP is only waiting, because they already are saying that our attempt on the opposition side is to disrupt the cause trouble for the election, before the election, or after the election. So they're framing that what we are trying to do is to cause trouble. And I don't want to say anything on this program to get you. All I'm saying is that there's an impasse. And that impasse will be broken one way or the other. I don't want to predict how it will be broken.
All right, let me say to viewers or remind viewers that the protest for clean voters list and biometrics continues on Tuesday in front of GECOM. It starts at 12 o'clock. I'm encouraging each and every one of you to encourage somebody to join that protest, because that's a part, in my mind, that's a part of the political solution. Guyanese have to be prepared to take to the streets in front of GECOM across this country to up the ante and to continue to demand in an unceasing way biometrics and a clean voters list. The WPA is on record as saying that it doesn't mind if it has to quote unquote extend the life of the PPP government for a few mornings more. The rest of the opposition has said they don't mind basically what they will do, what is necessary to ensure we get a clean voters list and biometrics. Jagdeo and the government, on the other hand, don't seem to want to give in to that demand. And so, like I say, it's the people who must make that call. It's the people who must make it, as we like to say in this country, pellucidly clear that clean voters list and biometrics must be granted for the next elections. And I'm encouraging you that one way to ensure that that message gets across and gets across clearly is to join the protest and choose this. Dr. Hines, I opened my program talking about the traffic situation in this country, or the road accident, the carnage. Even as I was talking about that, I received news that another sand truck is in an accident, toppled on the Heroes Highway, I think. Many of you will recognize the Heroes Highway as basically a straight road. And here it is, sand truck, heavily laden, has toppled on the Heroes Highway. Many argue that part of the problem with those sand trucks is the fact that they got a quota. Some people say, I understand it's about $10,000 a trip or $5,000 a trip. And so the more trips you can make as a driver, the more you earn. Like onto the minibuses. The more trips they can make a day, the more they earn. And so the care and caution is thrown out of the window. The way these people use the road in an effort, I would say, to maximize their monies. Another observation of mine is that a lot of the people who operate these sand trucks are young men, who many will argue are inexperienced. And so all they have in front of them, like every other youth or most other youth, get rich quick or die trying. And I'm talking about the inexperience of these young men operating. Just last week, a 19-year-old was buried under an excavator that he was operating. I'm sure you have seen all of these things. You cringe at all of the deaths and so on. What is your take? What is responsible? What can be done for correcting this situation? And does the WPA have, as WPA leader, what likely policies you think should be in place?
Kidaki, there's the human element. You have, I'm sure, sped on the road. I have gotten tickets for speeding. All of us. There's a human element. All over the world, people drive crazy if you allow them. The last ticket I got for speeding, I think, was over 20 years ago. I got a ticket, I think, for $180 speeding. I was going to the airport and I was late and I was speeding and I got $180-something ticket. That's it. That's it. That was it for me. I stopped speeding. All right? So there's the human element in all of this. Like you said, people have to meet quotas. They're young people who are driving and saying, there must be deterrence. And in Guyana, there is no deterrence for bad behavior. There's no deterrence for bad behavior. People will want to put people behind a wheel and you give them the leeway to speed and to overtake and to do all the craziness that you see on the road. They will do it. They will do it. I always tell my students that I ask them, if there were no traffic lights, think what would happen. We wouldn't get home. We wouldn't get where we are going because everybody would be trying to do their own thing. But the traffic light is a deterrence. All right. Now you can put the traffic lights. You can put all the signs, as I heard the minister say, there are clear signs on the road. You can put all those things in place. And if you are not enforcing the law, people will disregard those traffic lights and other things. And so, therefore, it is the responsibility of the government to ensure there is order in society. There's always been the balance, the conflict between freedom and order. People's right to do things as individuals. But you have to do those things as individuals once you don't harm other people. That's the order. The optimum is always to balance freedom and order. Freedom and order. the government has to ensure there is order in the society without depriving people of their freedom. And this government has not been able to do that. If I make a statement here on this program this morning, they're going to quick to come after me, come after you, to arrest us in the name of order. So the government has its priorities wrong. It wants to go after political opponents, very quickly uses the police to do that. But it cannot use the coercive arms of the state in a democratic way. It uses the coercive arm of the state in undemocratic ways. But when it is called upon to use the coercive arm of the state to democratically ensure there is order on the streets, order on the roads, it cannot do so. Because you cannot suck in and blow whistle at the same time. You cannot want the police to carry out your political orders and then say to the police, you can't take a bribe on the road. See, you drive on the streets in Guyana, it's all craziness. Because people know that if they get caught, you can bribe the police. Now, in a lot of societies, if you get caught speeding and driving crazy on the road, the most you can do is beg the police for, give me a chance, officer. Bribe is not an option. In America, for the most part, bribe is not an option. But in Guyana, bribe is an option. And so once drivers know that there is no deterrence, they will do what they're doing. It's human to do that. And that is what we face in Guyana, is the inability of the state in an even-handed way to ensure there is order on the road. If you don't see a sign saying the speed limit is 60 kilometers, you will drive as fast as you want to. It is human to do that. The philosopher said mankind left to its own, to our own, left to ourselves, our life will be short, nasty, and brutish. And that's what you see in Guyana. Because people are left there and there is no enforcing of the law. And so, as Hop said, our lives will be short, nasty, and brutish. And that is what you're seeing in Guyana. And there's not something the WPA or the PNC or there's not a partisan thing. There has to be a commitment on the part of the police because they are charged with protection and they are charged with ensuring order. And there must be a commitment on the part of the political directorate to hold the police accountable. But the government cannot hold the police accountable because it wants the police to be a political police. And so the police, when they go there, their objective is not to enforce the law, to maintain order in the society. Their objective is to make a penny. And then the drivers know that that's their objective. And they do what they do on the streets, on the roads. And if they get caught, they assume that they can pay the police some money and get off. And so in that situation, we have the madness there on the streets. The Guyana is a lawless place. It's a lawless place because we have a government that is transactional. And so long as you have a transactional government, that transaction between the government and the police will filter down to a transaction between the police and the citizens. And the citizens know, like I said, if they break the law, they can give the police a penny and get off. And that's what we have there. It's a systemic problem that in some regards have become part of the culture of the society. It happens on the roads. It happens when you go into an office to get something done. It's total lawlessness. So there's no easy fix to what's happening there, because it is not a case where you have this big accident there on Cherry Street yesterday morning and people will then say, oh boy, I should stop speeding. That's not happening. That's not happening. People are not stopping this carnage because somebody got killed in an accident. So it is the government that has to step in because they are charged with order, maintaining order. Killing is not a deterrence. So you pick up the newspaper and every day somebody's dead on the streets, and you would hope that the human conscience, but the human conscience doesn't operate in a vacuum. The human conscience is largely dictated by the ability or inability of the authorities to maintain order. Again, mankind left to its own device, our lives will be short, nasty, and brutish. And that is why we created government. We created government to, in many regards, to prevent us and to save us from our instincts, our destructive instincts. And our government in Guyana is not doing that. It cannot do that because it's a transactional government. It's not a government that is democratic. And if there are no democratic instincts on the part of the government, then is the law of the jungle. The law of the jungle, that is what you're seeing there in Guyana.
Thank you, Dr. Hines. It's now 8 hours 31. It's 29 minutes to the 9 o'clock hour on the 20th of November in the year 2024. A bit of sad news coming here, Dr. Hines. We are about to open up the lines, but let me say that I've received information that Ruth Trimmer has died. Ruth Trimmer, also known as Caris, you know her. The in-laws of Keith Easton, I think.
Yes.
Yes, so Caris has died. I understand she died not so long ago this morning. So condolences to the relatives and friends and co-workers and all. Sad news indeed.
Yes. Let me just say one thing. When the coalition government came to office in 2015, if you can remember, people just took to the streets and they began to clean up Guyana. People were just clean up. You remember they just started to clean up. Clean up Georgetown, clean up the villages. They were doing it, you know, voluntarily. Because there was a confidence that here is a government coming, and this was a new beginning. Again, the human spirit, the feeling that here is a new government, and here is a government that there's confidence in. And so the human spirit kicked in, and people began to clean up. And I think the
Morning, neighbor, morning, are you morning? Morning, neighbor, morning, are you morning? Welcome to another program of Guyanese Morning Time. I am your host, Kidaki Amsterdam. It is now 7 hours 33. That is 27 minutes to the 8 o'clock hour on the 21st day of November in the year 2024. Christmas is in the air already, bye. I wonder what y'all doing with this $100,000. A lot of people start getting their 100,000 blessings. Well, it could be a curse too. So, what is a beauty lies in the eyes of the beholder. How are you doing? How was I yesterday? How are you doing today? How was last night? What you plan to achieve today? Have you set any smart goals? I hope you have, right? I hope you have set some smart goals. Among those smart goals is don't let nobody trick you to get your ID card details and photograph and all manner of things. You don't have to tell people where you voted in order to get your money. Don't let them fool you or even try to school you now. You know what I'm talking about? Be very careful. They're out there trying to con you all. Anyhow, we're going to talk about that and lots of other things. This morning is Mr. Jordan's morning. It's another Thursday, so we'll be talking with former Minister of Finance, Winston Jordan, about the economy. But I'd like to share with you a press release from the Working People's Alliance, WPA, in relation to the cash grant and what appeared to be scampishness. I don't want to call it anything else but scampishness. So let me share that press release for you, or with you, I should say. Working People's Alliance, dated November 20th, 2024, released to the press and public. WPA has received information that distribution of the $100,000 cash handout has commenced at several government agencies. We welcome this development. However, many public servants have contacted us to express their concern that they are being forced to have pictures of their identification cards taken by the personnel doing the distribution. They are also asked to say where they voted at the last election. Those who refuse to follow these instructions are being told that they would be denied the handout. WPA notes that the government has repeatedly said that the only requirement for receiving the handout is the presentation of a valid identification card or passport. The government must answer the following questions. Why these added requirements now? Why does the government want copies of ID cards? What does information about where someone voted at the last election have to do with receiving a cash handout? What is the linkage between elections and the cash handout? Why was there no public announcement that recipients would have to meet these added requirements? What does the government intend to do with the pictures of the ID cards and with information of where people voted at the last election? WPA can only conclude that its initial suspicions that there were hidden motives behind this initiative was not far-fetched. We have always been suspicious that voters rather than all citizens are being targeted for the handout. At a time when opposition parties are trying to get GECOM to address the issue of voter impersonation, and the governing party is stoutly resisting any moves in this direction, the government's forced acquisition of people's ID cards is an ominous sign. Something sinister is afoot. It is not out of place to suggest that this exercise could be linked to an orchestrated effort by the ruling party to tamper with the elections long before election day. If this suggestion is proven to be correct, our country could be in for a rough ride in the lead up to the election. WPA therefore condemns in the strongest terms this latest development. We call on GECOM, local stakeholders, and the international community to take note of this development. We call on the government to explain why it is using the cash handout to bully citizens to turn over their information. In the meantime, we ask Guyanese to refuse to turn over their personal information to government agents. That's the press release coming from the desk of the Working People's Alliance, issued yesterday as a response to information received that public servants who were attempting to collect their $100,000 cash grant at varying ministries, varying entities in the public service, were faced with what we call a surprise. The requirement was not simply you presenting your ID, a valid ID card or passport, so that they can validate who you are. But those persons who turn up to get their money, they were asked to take photographs of themselves and ID cards. They were asked to provide information as to where they last voted, along with their home address and stuff like that. As a matter of fact, in my mind, they were asked for a lot of information which had nothing or has nothing to do with receiving a cash grant. The parliamentary representatives, I think, also received their cash grant. They were asked to submit information to receive their cash grant. The only information they had to submit was their ID or passport number. The ID card or passport number is what parliamentarians were required to provide to uplift their cash grant. But the ordinary citizens, as usual, in the public servant, the PPP always believes that they can abuse them. You know? So whatever we say, you are likely to accept because you want this pittance to stop your hunger. We know we pay you starvation wages. And so any addition to that starvation wages, you will welcome. And so you're going to be prepared to bend over backward to collect the pittance. Yeah, Lyndon Daniels, in my mind, is not facts. You give me the facts. Give me the factual justification for all of this extra requirement to collect this cash handout. You tell me, you Lyndon Daniels, whoever you be, he, she, it, or whatever. You give me that information. You tell me what the facts are. The facts are, it is well, let me don't say the facts are. It is alleged that prior to the commencement of the cash distribution in the public service, the head of every IT department in the public service was summoned to a meeting by Barrett Jagdeo. That's what our sources are telling us. It's alleged that what happened. And those IT heads were giving instructions. They were giving instructions. And from what we're seeing, obviously the instruction has something to do with collecting people's information. You know, sometimes I come here and I get really aggravated for the likes of Lyndon Daniels and so on. They always seem to want to defend the PPP with their foolishness. Right is right, wrong is wrong. If parliamentarians are required to provide only their ID card identification or passport number to collect this money, what, are they superior to the rest of the population? As a matter of fact, they're servants to the rest of the population. And so how is it? It could be what I might call a higher requirement for poor people. The working poor, public servants, to give more than their political representatives in order to get this money. Animal farm, they say some are more equal than others. But the reality is, the criteria advertised for people to be able to get this grant is the provision of an ID card or a valid passport. So how suddenly, when people turn up for their money, they're being told, you got to provide this, that, the other, the next, or you can't get this money. This is bullyism. This is bullyism. This is slavery. But you're going to get people coming here to defend this nonsense. I mean, I don't mind what your political choices are. But show some semblance of a willingness to think. And not sell your soul because of your political preference. I tell you already, I don't hold brief for anybody. If you're my political representative and you screw up, I'm going to beat you. I'm going to call you out. Because I'm a robot. So let us, public servants, let me tell you this. Stick to your guns. Don't be desperate. Don't be so desperate that people can infringe on your constitutional rights just for you to get 500 US or less than 500 US dollars. Stick to your guns. The only information you are required to provide and should provide is contained on your national ID card or in your passport. Nothing else. Nobody should be taking your photograph. Nobody should be taking photograph of those documents. Nobody should be asking you where you voted. The next thing they might ask you is who you voted for. Because as they say, give them an inch, they take a yard. And we've been giving too many inches. Too many inches. All in the name of I need it, I desperate. Don't be desperate, folks. You were surviving before $100,000 grant. And you will survive long after $100,000 grant. But what I can tell you is the quality of your survival will be very well impacted, and I dare say impacted negatively with the PPP in government. Hold strain. Hold strain. And work diligently to put them out of government so that you could see the improvements in your life. And if part of holding strain means telling them I'm not giving you any other thing except this ID card or this passport to get that grant, that is holding strain. Let them decide what they will do when you hold that position. That is all you're providing, because that is the only requirement. And just like the individuals who reached out to us to give us this information, that's all you're required to do. Highlight it. Make it public. The PPP doesn't like a public fight over anything. They are a set of cowards, bullies and cowards. It's 40 minutes to the 8 o'clock hour. I'm going to get Mr. Jordan in. So bear with me while I make this most important call. I see Modi is here. And again, like the typical politicians here. You know, a few weeks ago, well, yeah, like last week or the week before. Yeah, I live on the East Coast, so I traverse the East Coast. Every approach to a bridge on the East Coast is bad. Every single approach. The crevices are big. If you don't be careful, your tire might fall in there, your wheel might fall in there. And I've had to endure that, like all of the motorists using the East Coast roads. I've had to endure that for an extended period of time. But then I saw them suddenly, I don't know if that is what they call force control, but the maintenance team at the Ministry of Public Works, or whatever they call them, public infrastructure, whatever, they came out and they started fixing these crevices, patching holes where they existed, leveling roads where they needed to be leveled. And so for the last few days, when I use the East Coast Road, it's easier to cross the bridges. You don't have to be dodging potholes in the middle of the road and so on and so forth. And then last night, it was brought to my attention, Mr. Hassan, you notice all the street lights, all the road lights have been fixed. You notice all them lights working? Because Modi is visiting Guyana. And in order to take Modi to Palmyra, because Palmyra apparently is the PPP's newest shrine. And so in order to take Modi to the newest shrine, they got to use the East Coast Road. And so Modi must not experience the bumps and unevenness of roads and other discomforts that Guyanese have been experiencing for the longest while using the road. No, Modi must not know that our citizens are forced to use poorly maintained infrastructure. So let us patch them up, let us fix them up, let us put on the lights. So you will tell us what a wonderful job we are doing, what a great job we are doing. And that is what happened. They fix the lights, they fix the roads. They also put on show the wickedness and the bad-mindedness, the disdain for citizens of this country. You can't fix it for the citizens who are taxpayers and who are the rightful inheritors of the resources of this country. But Modi, the things I wanted to say just now come to 10. That man who's hungering Muslims in his country is so sacred, above all else, that you could rush and fix the road. These are the things that Guyanese must pay attention to. These are the things that Guyanese must pay. Bad roads don't only affect African Guyanese, bad roads affect every citizen in this country, even the PPP supporters. It puts all of their lives at risk, all of our lives at risk. And for that, dark streets put all of our lives at risk. And for this display of disrespect, as I call it, The PPP should be made to pay. They're just concerned about the next photo opportunity. They're not concerned about the well-being of the citizens. But I want citizens to open their eyes and recognize the PPP that they're dealing with. I said I was going to call Mr. Jordan.
Jackie,
Good morning, sir. It's another Wednesday, you know.
it's another Thursday, man. You're holding back Christmas.
Right, church, round pew.
I'm well within myself, man. I'm well trying to keep healthy and live with the times, you know. Picking up right from where you left off with the Modi visit. There's so many things we have to be thankful for his visit. You know, we have to be thankful that he visited because, as you said, you finally got the East Coast Road fixed, at least some of the holes that you have around Strathspey and Monrepo and all those villages where you're right, you could leave a whole wheel, not only a tire, you can leave a whole wheel because of those unevenness where the bridge is fast trying to run away from the road. You know, so you got to be thankful that that piece at least has been fixed. Of course, you must be thankful that you get lights, as you said, not only along the East Coast Road, but it would appear that the blackout or the absence of electricity has been temporarily halted. You know, the frequent blackouts have been temporarily halted while he was around. So you have to be thankful for that. And you have to be thankful for his visit because in the dead of the night, the fire brigade was out there using their hose to clean the streets, clean Regent streets and so on. You must be thankful for all the painting up and all the flags and all kinds of story. So yes, we're thankful that Modi came because us minions, the citizens of this country, not supposed to get a continuously clean and healthy environment. We can't get the fire brigade to go in the dead of the night and clean and get all the different garbage trucks and so on available to remove the garbage and to clean and to all the receptacles that are overflowing with garbage. You know, we can't get those removed until we get another visit from another head honcho.
Well, it's not just any head honcho, you know, because I'm sure I've seen visits from at least you had one African leader came to this country and you didn't get all the fanfare. So it must be somebody from the motherland.
Well, the problem with the visit of the well, you know, somebody from the motherland is identified as Inyo, Bharat, Inyo. But somebody from Africa is not so easily identified. You come from various countries and so on. And, you know, some of us come from Nigeria, some of us come from Ghana and whatnot. And therefore, the affinity, the affinity between Inyo and her people overseas is far greater than the affinity between Africa, the continent, as opposed to a country, and overseas Africans, you know. So that might be one of the reasons when the Ghanaian president visited, I think it's around 2018 or sometime like that. Not much was there relations between us and Ghana, you know, and unlike the strength of Guyana in the non-aligned movement and among the African, particularly South, East, and West Africa on the Bornum, because remember those days when we used to have an endless stream of visits
by people like Suresti Kama and Julius Nairi and Kenneth Kaunda, and all those other different African leaders. The Ghanaian leader was probably the first leader since those days to visit Guyana, And like I said, the affinity between Inyo, the country, and our overseas people of Indian origin, definitely not the same between Africa, the continent, and our people of African descent. So all of those might have been a thing. I mean, in Guyana, for example, how many museums and whatnot, do you see celebrating African, origin, culture, and all these different things. Here you have gardens, you have what do you call it? Some Indian memorial gardens, you have Palmaria, you have this, all these different gardens and so on where people go and pay as a shrine. We don't have those things. But having said that also, I noticed that Modi was given what is supposedly our highest award, the Order of Excellence. Of course, this was never announced as part of the program of activities. It appears that some things were kept secret because in all of the awards that we know about, these have always been announced in advance. When Lula came and he was going to be given an award, it was announced. When Mia Motley came and she was going to be given an award, the Order of Roraima was announced. When her predecessor came right from Barbados and was to be given an award, it was announced and so on. So in almost all the cases, if not all the cases, Chavez and so on, this award was announced well in advance. But this one was sprung upon us, apparently at a state dinner, where he was given this Order of Excellence and the tablet that goes with it. And I'm telling you, I am peeved not over the award of excellence to Modi. I'm not peeved over that. I am peeved over the political nature of these awards and the fact that after 4 years plus of being in power, this Ali government has not seen it fit to award any Guyanese national award. I don't know if it is dawned upon people that after 4+ years, not a single award has been given to any Guyanese, rich or poor, businessman or vendor. No one. And this follows in the footsteps of his mentor, who apparently didn't see the necessity of awarding people for their efforts. Prior to us coming in 2015, the last national awards were made, I think, in 2011. When I think Samines got an Order of Excellence. And before then, the last national award had been made in 2002, I think, or 2000. I think it's 2002 or 2001 or something like that. A decade before. So while every country, Britain every year, in fact, Britain got, I think, 2 or 3 times during the year when they make national awards, the Queen's Birthday list, the Queen's New Year's list, and all this kind of story. We don't see it fit to award our people. An award some of them are doing because some of the housewives that we have here who can make 5 cents into $5 or $5,000, they need national awards. And all those farmers who are striving mightily against all the odds, well, they can't get a national award. You see where I'm going with this?
Certainly.
And then, of course, why I say these awards have taken on such a political nature. They keep saying that the Order of Excellence is Guyana's highest national award. But what a lot of people don't seem to remember is that having refused to accept the Order of Excellence in 1970, along with Forbes Burnham, Jagan was then given a national award considered to be the highest national award called the Order of Liberation. They said a one-time national award only to Cherry Jagan that is higher than the Order of Excellence. Go check it out, you will see if you remember that.
Not too young.
Right? So as usual, we don't think he's on par with Bornum. We think he's higher than Bornum. We don't think we have dual fathers of the nation. We got one father of the nation. And that is what has been portrayed, but that is what is always in these people's psyche. And you talk about one Guyana, and you talk about striving for unity and so on. And this unity of party could only take place when they are pumped up. This unity will never take place if you have any other governing body in this country. And that is really what is unfortunate. They created a special award for Jagan over and above the Order of Excellence. And got the mitigated girl to continue to call the Order of Excellence Guyana's highest national award. But that is what I thought I would bring as an aside.
Thank you.
No national can get a national award. But as soon as Modi or any other high-ranking person comes, you give them a national award. Let me say categorically that under the coalition, every year, national awards were given. Personally, I didn't consider many of them who got national awards to be worthy of national awards, but that's another story. The fact is that the tradition continued, and every year there were national awards. You want to see how these people think about national awards? The last set of awards, I believe in 2020, that were granted in 2020, were not delivered until after the new government came into power. And my understanding is that they were told to go to office the president and collect the awards at the gate. There was no pomp and ceremony and so on. But they were told to go to the gate and collect the awards at the gate. That is what these people think about national awards to their own citizens, so to speak. But we make a lot of pomp and ceremony about giving the Order of Excellence to Modi. Don't know again when you're going to hear about national awards. Maybe we have to await the visit of another head of state or somebody who we want to give a national award in exchange for something that we could get from them. Because that is what has been happening. They got a very egregious case, which I want to report at this stage, but I will come back to this subject back in the day. What do you think, Kidak? You know you're not ready yet for a national award, but what do you think?
About the manner in which it's delivered?
Yeah, or the fact that you have the elder is 100 next year, I think he is. But I don't recall him ever being given a national award or given the opportunity to turn down a national award.
I'm not too sure, but I think he once turned down a national award. I think he did. But the reality is, like you said, these things are political. They're certainly political. There are people who are outstanding citizens and who have done given human service to this country and so on. And they have not been awarded, they have not been recognized. But people who are simply political lackeys have been blessed with such awards. And so when governments behave the way they behave in terms of politicizing these awards, at least to me, I pay scant regard to who get them and who get them.
Yeah, well, I am the same here, but it's not a question of just who getting and who not getting. The question is if they continue to remain national awards, whether they're really worth it, whether they're really worth it, so to speak. I mean, you see, wake up a political hack gets an OR, whereas a hard-working person, genuine with all a long list of achievements and so forth, gets an AA. and you know, and so on. You know, there seems to be the quality of these awards. You know, devaluing the quality of the awards. You know, and who get these awards and all kinds of story. And it's it loses value, so to speak. You know, it absolutely loses value. No one, I mean, let us be real. A couple of our political friends and so on, you know, may be given an award and so on. But even as you give them, their whole experience and achievements and so on still behind them, you know, when you're giving them the award. But the rate at which we're using these awards, either to extract a concession or something in the sort, is unbelievable. And to be quite honest, not only Guyana is involved in this. I saw sometime either this year or last year, a certain award was given to a certain person that had the whole Caribbean doing more than talk, all right, having more than chatter about it as to whether the individual deserved it and what was behind it. And I think the consensus was that it was a transactional award. And you know, you see a lot of that. You see a lot of that. You know, people are given an award in the hope of getting back something and so on. But that's what I want to say. The 4+ years in government, nobody in Guyana seems to be worthy of award. And I guess he's going to end his term with nobody either being awarded or because they're listening to the program.
You might get a slew of awards.
Our slew of awards come next year, Republic, because that will be the earliest that they could make an announcement to the award. You may very well get a slew of awards.
Like the radio licenses and television licenses.
Oh boy. Yes, so the next topic the real subject I want to talk about is pensions, man. This old age pension.
But Mr. John, before you go there, give us your view quickly on this most recent development of people being asked to tell folks where they voted and give photographs of themselves and all kinds of things to get this $100,000 grant.
Yeah, well, you remember last week's program where I headlined it, how a simple cash grant scheme, one-off cash grant scheme, turned into a vote buying scheme, you know, and all the additional elements are now being put in place, right? It's no longer a cash grant that was designed to assist with cost of living. After all, this is November. November is already almost finished. And you couldn't be rewarded in November, recognizing the cost of living. So this here now is indeed the vote buying scheme. And so what you're seeing now are all the different pieces that are being put in place. And the more you put those in place, you realize, well, look, this is an easy scheme of understanding who are the potential voters, where they are located, and how we can influence them using all the various techniques, electioneering techniques, you know, whether it be through the ads that you see popping up on your phone, or telephone calls, or actual people turning up at your places now and offering you even more than outside in the cash grant, and so on. So it's the harvesting of information, and trust me, I sometimes, you know, I get torn off the way the opposition deals with these matters, because we made issue about this thing being put in law, but we did not make enough noise and continuous noise about this matter being put in law. We did not go out there and educate our people why this thing needs to be put in law. Because the harvesting of this information outside any legal framework, I believe, can be challenged. And like I said, we can't wait until it both Ghana falls, as they say, to then go see if we can challenge it. Because all the information would be harvested and mined while you challenging it. And it's not going to be made available nationally. It's going to be available only to one competitor who already got significant advantages in terms of incumbency and so on. But the whole issue about mining, gathering information, which for all intents and purposes are usually gathered under a framework of law. The national ID card that contains all kinds of information is governed by laws. The immigration card that you fill up when you're coming in or exiting the country is governed by laws. But here you have a cash grant that is mining significant personal information beyond regular information, beyond name and ID number. But it is not covered by any law that we are aware of. And for me, people who are anxious for $100,000, which they hope will be their Christmas windfall or bonus or so on, aren't going to pay too much attention to the fact that their information, they are going to be giving out personal information that will forever be out there and that can be used for all kinds of purposes. There's a reason, for example, why you must have a Data Protection Act. There's a reason, for example, why information given to, say, Guyana Revenue Authority cannot be cross-referenced, say, at the banks. In other words, that Guyana Revenue Authority can't give out your information to, say, the banks, certainly without a court order. And the courts can't get your information unless there's a court order, and so on. So all of these things are encapsulated in legal frameworks, but this particular aspect is not being done so. And as I said, it would have required the parties, the political parties, I'm talking about the opposition political parties, to educate their membership that while we understand that you need this money because it's your money and so forth, that you have to be wary of giving out personal information because it can be used for nefarious purposes. You do not need to give out any other information other than the fact that here's my ID card, here's my ID number. And in fact, you don't even need to give out that information. At the time when you go to collect your money, you must be able to present an ID card or passport. That is what they said. So what is the purpose behind the mining of all this information? What is the purpose behind calling all the IT people from all the different ministries? I don't know what is behind that, because what are you going to do? Call all the IT people in the private sector agencies when you're ready to pay the private sector people? So what is necessarily behind this whole story about calling all the IT people in the ministry where you control? I don't know. So I think the government is going down a wrong road, and all of this could have been avoided if legislation was put in place. And for that legislation to be put in place, it would have to go through different rounds of consultation plus heavy debate, where all of these matters would have been debated, would have been explained, and fears and whatnot would have been allayed, or concerns that were raised would have been answered, and so forth. So now that you have this now that is being done in cloak and dagger, in a cloak and dagger manner, now that you have different folks with different strokes, because like I said, you don't know what they are going to be doing when it comes to the private sector employees. You don't know what they're going to be doing when it comes to the other kinds of employees. You don't know what they're going to be doing when it comes to the diasporan dining and so forth. You don't know. It seems to be different folks with different strokes. All of this could have been avoided if this whole matter could have been codified in law. But the fact that now people think that there is some sinister thing behind this, they got a right to. Because they're not being kept up to date with the rollout of app, the build out of app, and all these different things. They're not being kept up to date as to how are you going to be paying out this money before the end of the month, when today is the 24th day of the month. But we don't see any moves of Parliament for any supplementary to pay this money. So, my friend, I think the parties then have to mobilize. And this is one of the problems, I think, one of the bigger problems that you have. Because it still remains as a disparate entity, as opposed to, say, a joint opposition moving in tandem. I think the people see this and comfortably exploiting it. You know, and that is unfortunate where the opposition is concerned. Because
you see the damning.
So they don't need to sorry?
No, sorry, you go ahead.
No, I was going to conclude and say, as far as the government is concerned, they don't need to go there educating anybody. It is the opposition who needs to educate the people. But they're the one who starting at the disadvantage. They're the one who started the disadvantage. And you know when you take advantage of poor people by giving them bread. Many have sold their soul just to get a piece of bread to survive. And when you corner people and put them in the economic streets and financial streets that you have done at the moment, $100,000 look like a king's windfall. And so you'll have to educate them and constantly educate them, re-educate them to the fact that this money, we know you need it, we know you're recruiting and so on. But don't sell yourself. Don't sell yourself back into slavery. Don't sell out your information, because that information is not needed to give you what is your own. It is not needed. And if the ubiquitous GECOM is so confident of their lists, notwithstanding all the concerns that have been raised about their lists, all parties, all political parties have access to that list. By right, all contesting parties should have access to that list. And the commissioners on those parties have access to the list. And the government, because the list is not no secret, and the government, if they want access to the list, can get access to the list. And then use the list. We will know who, first of all, we'll know who's in Guyana. Because nobody is going to give up $100,000 with that ease. Well, let's say nobody. But almost everyone is going to claim the $100,000. You should get a fair idea on the list. You also get a fair idea of those who are either dead, out of the jurisdiction, and so on. So we get a fair idea of potential voters for the upcoming election, give or take plus or minus a couple hundred or a couple thousand. So you don't need all this up and wrap and all this kind of story. You just need people, a list available, people to turn up with their ID cards and their passports and collect the $100,000. So the fact that we're going down this road clearly can infer, you know, devious motives or motives that are not consistent with the distribution of the $100,000. So go ahead. I know you want to make one.
No, I didn't. You go right ahead.
Yeah. All right. So, yes, I was telling you this pension story keeps having layers and layers of stuff added to it. You know, so I think it's yesterday or the day before yesterday, I think it was, that after consistent cries about the old age pension books not as yet being distributed, the Ministry of Human Services, Ministry of Labor, Human Services, or Ministry of Human Services and Social Protection came out with an announcement in which they saying that there are investigations ongoing about fraud in these books, with these books, where and that is being conducted by the police. All well and good. What that has to do with distribution of the 2025 books? They're saying as a result of this fraud, they are now enhancing the features of the book. You know, sometimes I don't know with human beings, you know. So you have a fraud with the pension books. You don't enhance the system that caused the fraud to happen. You are going to go and do what we call surface phenomenon. Enhance the features of the books. It's not the features of the books that cause the problem. It's the system that allows the books to be photocopied or whatever it is. It is the system that allowed the books to be passed off at various post offices. It's the similar system to voting at the national elections. Similar system. If these books are apparently that were photocopied, you will go to unsuspecting places to cash it. And it requires a level of collusion between the people who have put together those fake books and the people who is distributing the cash. It is the system. You can put in how many enhanced features that you want. And it will stop the kind of fraud that takes place. This is the same thing as the corollary is the national elections. Think about it. Think about it. And when you put in these enhanced features, for example, how would the post offices, let us use the post offices, how would the different people of different ages at the different post offices be able to detect these enhanced features? To be able to discriminate between a fake and a real book. How will they be able to do it? Are they going to be given special training as to what to look for? Are they going to be equipped with machines to detect which one is fake? Like what you do, for example, when you want to, in the United States, they have machines where, you know, they constantly battling against fake $100 bills. So they have these machines where you can put the bill on the, or whatever, and you will, the features, whatever features you're looking for will come up, or whatever the case may be. So when you put these enhanced features in this, how would the post office people, and I'm just using the post office because I know they use other, they use the MoneyGram agencies, MoneyGram type agencies also, and so on. But how would they know what is fake from what is real? And like I said, because the system has flaws, notwithstanding your enhanced book, once there is an effort to collude, then those false ones will pass through. And it's the whole system, as we said, because when you look at it, one of the concerns that have been raised, and legitimate concerns that the GECOM, who seem, they believe that they're all powerful and they don't have to listen to other people. The national ID card is, I believe it's 2000 and, what is it? You remember Kidaki? The national ID card was handed out when? Is it 2006?
Or 9, which one? The most recent, right?
2000. Okay, even if it's 2009, it's 15 years old.
Yes.
And even for many of the national ID cards, the picture wasn't captured properly. Even then, the picture wasn't captured properly. But notwithstanding whether, even if it was a great picture at 2009, 15 years on, your total features have changed. And you are asking all kinds of different people who have never been trained to detect facial features to agree within a split second that this is the person who's presenting the ID card. You got a lot of systemic problems that you're not addressing. But you address a surface phenomenon called enhanced features of the paper that involves significant costs, by the way. There's always this lethargy. There's this resistance, as in GECOM, to conduct an audit of the system and the procedures that given rise to these allegations of fraud and so forth. The resistance, as in GECOM, is similar resistance here because they're not attacking the system that is giving rise to the fraud, but they're attacking the surface phenomenon, thinking that if you put in enhanced features don't stop. The most enhanced features probably contained in the $100 US bill. That don't stop people from counterfeiting it and hoping to get away with it, as they do on many occasions. And if the existing fraud is based on what we saw on Facebook, put out by a popular influencer on social media, if that is the type of fraud, how are you going to stop that? Because that fraud originated in the ministry and had allegedly a senior police person involved. Once the money is great, people are going to take the risk. They're going to take the risk. So I don't know this business about why old age pensioners got to suffer the way how they can suffer, because there's no date yet. And knowing the chaos, I've talked about this on several occasions, the chaos that attends the distribution of these books. It's going to be, we can only be optimistic, but it's probably going to be chaotic again come next month when the old age pension books hopefully will start being distributed. The other concern, major concern, which is not new, of this old age pension story, is the number of pensioners. I'll go through some features, some quick points about it, and I'll trace some history to show you why there must be serious concern about the number of old age pensioners. You see, way back in 2011, January 30th, 2011 to be exact, there was a letter to the Kaito News by Ibla Henry, who was the then fiscal officer of the Ministry of Labor, Human Services, and Social Security. And at that time, he had disclosed that there were 41,167 old age pensioners on record in 2010 at the ministry. So bear with me with these numbers, because you can see why there's concern about the numbers of old age pensioners.
Sure.
So 2010, they had 41,167, and this is coming from a highly credible source who was the fiscal officer in the ministry, Ibla Henry. At November 2020, based on a highly credible source in the ministry, there were approximately 57,000 old age pensioners on record. So therefore, between 2010 and 2020, that decade of 2010-2020, the average net increase in pensioners was 1,584. The average net increase, I say net increase because pensioners would have died and new pensioners would have been brought on the payroll, okay? So the average was 1,584 for that 10-year period, 2010 to 2020. Now, according to an article in Collateral News, November 20th, 2024, quote, there has been an increase in the number of pensioners to 70,000 over the last 3 years. So that'll be 2021 to 2024. So at 2020, they had 57,000 old age pensioners. By 2024, there are now 70,000 plus pensioners, old age pensioners.
How plausible is that?
So bear with me. Between November 2020, when you had the roughly 57,000, and November 2024, when they're now saying there are 70,000, there's been an increase of 13,000. 13,000 old age pensioners, or an average net increase of 3,250 old age pensioners over the 4-year period from November 2020 to November 2024. 3,000, a doubling of the previous 10-year period of 1,584. How credible is this? How credible is this? It cannot be. And this is what I'm saying, that the systems have gone awry. If you see this happening, you have to tell yourself, but wait a minute. Something is wrong. They have access to the census. We don't. But from all reports coming out, because they don't want to make the census available, that there has been a decline in the population.
Uh-huh.
There has been a decline in the population.
But
so some people,
pensioners?
Yes. There has been a decline in the population. We would expect that if that decline has indeed occurred, then perhaps more old age type pensioners would have died than, say, in other categories. All this is just speculation. But let us argue and say, oh, well, you know, I mean, it wasn't so. What can account for a doubling of old age pensioners, right? Because it's more than a doubling, because it's 1,584 on average for the previous 10-year period, and it's 3,250 on average for the 4-year period 2020 to 2024. So it's more than a doubling. So something is wrong with these numbers. Something is wrong with these numbers. And you know, this allows me to segue to that same 2011, when there was a big furor over pension. The issue of ghost pensioners was raised at that time in 2011, during the budget time, by former AFC founder Sheila Hula. I don't know if you remember that time.
I remember her.
And
yes, in fact, I remember that matter of ghost pensioners, yes.
Ghost pensioners. And as reported in the Stabrook News of January 26, 2011, Ola noted that there had been a sharp increase in the number of old age pensioners over the last 4 years. So that 4 year would have been 2007 to 2011. Right? And she was concerned that there was a sharp increase in the old age pensioners for that 4-year period, 2007 to 2011. And she said that using a self-compiled report, she said that between 2002 and 2006, the number of old age pensioners was between 33 to 34,000. However, by 2007, this number had increased sharply to 36,813 in 2007 and 40,389 in 2008. So let us use the top end of 34,000 at the end of 2006. It means that after 1 year, old age pensioners would have increased by 2,830 in 2007, old age pensioners. And by 2008, it would have increased by a further 3,000 600 almost pensioners. And yet we don't feel that something is dramatically wrong about this. But according to Holder, she continued that the performance value for money audit that was undertaken by the Auditor General showed that approximately 20% of persons 65 years and older were not in the ministry's database and were not in receipt of old age pension. Quote, the fact that only 76% of persons 65 years and older are in fact in receipt of old age pensioners also indicates that in 2002, the pensions of approximately 8,000 persons out of 32,000 identified by the census, 32,000 in that census, that's what they said were people 65 years plus. 32,000 identified by the census in that age group were being diverted elsewhere in the court. Holder charged that in dollar terms, this indicates a monthly difference of over $68 million and an annual difference in excess of $824 million that appears to have been diverted from the system. You see what is happening here? And this problem now continues to this day, that there are indeed ghost pensioners infecting the register. And a concern which the Auditor General appears indifferent to, the ministry itself appears to be indifferent to. And there are credible reports that a number of people, a sizable number of people who do not qualify under the criteria established for the collection of pensioners, old age pension, are actually collecting old age pension. And this partly can only be as a result of those who are controlling and manipulating the system. And for me, this is where I always call out the Auditor General's office. He found the time to be doing special audit of the maternity wing of the Georgetown Hospital for a period when the coalition was in government. He found the time to do a special audit in, I think, 2022 or 2023 on the maternity wing of the Georgetown Hospital at the time when the coalition government was in power in 2019. But he can't find the time to conduct performance and special audits in an area where the government may be leaking millions and millions of dollars. Again, is it whether these guardrails and oversight bodies are they free of politics and are willing to do their jobs? Or are they politically influenced as to what aspect of their job they will perform and which one they will neglect? It is all, there's no way, given the population size of here, that they can be 70,000 plus, 70,000 plus, because they didn't give the number. At one time, I think the number was as high, I believe, as 77,000 or so on. But let us use their 70,000. There's no way we can have 70,000 pensioners, given the size of our census that we are hearing, and which apparently the numbers of the population has declined. So I don't know what the Ministry of Human Services is really doing. I don't know what the government is doing. And I don't know where this police investigation will go. But that will only be one of several that they will have to conduct where this is concerned, because the system is porous and the system is not subjected to rigorous testing and oversight, thus allowing more than a so-called acceptable level or acceptable number of pensioners who should not, in all probability, be on the old age pension payroll. And so in many ways, the old age pensioners now are suffering for something that they didn't cause. They are under stress because they can't get the book. I read in today's paper a letter by Cyril Walker who said that they are torn up by the farms recently because they read some notice in one of the dailies that books were being shared out. They spent 3 hours there only to find out that nothing was being done, that the notice was either false or whatever the case may be. That is the anxiety. I've read other letters by Joan, I think Joan Collins is her name. Well, used to be a famous writer, Joan Collins. And even G.H.K. Lal have been writing about this trauma that is being created for these old age pensions. And I could give the Ministry of Human Services a piece of advice. The higher, the higher those pensions get, is the more it is an incentive for those who should not be on the payroll to be added on the payroll, and for those who want to engage in nefarious activities to be engaged. Can you imagine one person was able to siphon off $150 million? One person. 150 million, if that is a credible number and a correct number. But that was the number that was being circulated. 150 million. And that apparently is small change compared to the possible amounts that can be siphoned off because the system is porous. So I hope that the Ministry of Human Services, the government, the Attorney General's office, and whoever else will put their heads together and come up with a system that they're better able to control. Because if you can save $500 million by weeding out those who should not be on that roll and by weeding out the corruption that is endemic in the system, that money could be added back to old age pensioners, old age pension, and give increased pensions to those who validly and legitimately need that pension. The other quick topic I want to look at today is, you know that area at Michael and Commoner Street, Kadaki, opposite Bishop's High School. Kadaki. I hope I didn't put you to sleep.
You didn't put me to sleep, but I was distracted.
Oh, you were distracted. I know. I was asking you if you know that area. That area at Kwamino and Carmichael Street, opposite Bishop's, obliquely opposite Bishop's High School.
Yeah, I know that area. I think you had lessons there and so on and so forth.
Well, there was a famous hotel there.
Yes.
Called Wagon Wheel.
Yes.
Wagon Wheel. Those who know. And those who don't know will not know. But Wagon Wheel was a very famous hotel. Famous for all kinds of things. I noticed they knocked down the hotel. And I was passing there recently. And I saw a big signboard. It says, site of the headquarters of the new headquarters of the Bank of Baroda.
Okay, interesting.
Interesting. I said to myself, I shook my head and I smiled. I smiled from a standpoint that some nostalgia swept over me that that famous Wagon Wheel Hotel had gone. But now, rising from the ashes, this would be a spanking new headquarters of Bank of Baroda. And I was pleased because Bank of Baroda, along with Bank of Nova Scotia, if you do recall, was intended to exit Guyana's market in 2019 because of various reasons. They were consolidating their operations in this part of the world. I guess Outlook was one of them. All these conditions of the anti-money laundering and all these different things. So profit margins were being affected. So these two banks were intended to pull out, and the coalition government had to do rear guard action.
Yes, I remember.
To keep these banks. I personally went up to Mumbai, which is the headquarters of Baroda, and talk to them as to why the decision that they're making, in the context of a country that had just announced forced oil, or no, they didn't announce forced oil, but a country that had definitely announced oil, why they should be staying in Guyana and even expanding the operations rather than seeking to leave. And ultimately, they agreed to stay. And so it was with some pride that I looked and see that they have reached the stage in less than 5 years where they can be building a spanking new headquarters in that old, familiar, famous place that once housed the Wagon Wheel Hotel. And this allows me to segue quickly into an article I read that was put out by Newsroom, where it says that the government intends to bring a bill to the parliament to enable banks to use movable collateral as securities for loans. Okay, so we know that currently banks rely heavily on immovable property such as land and buildings and so on. And that definitely this affects small and medium-sized businesses who tend not to own the land nor the building in which they are conducting their business. But this is not to say that banks that are not already engaged in using movable collateral as securities for loans. All those banks who are forever talking about giving loans for cars, the motor cars. The motor cars are used as security. When you go to your insurance company and you have to take out comprehensive insurance, the insurance has to be in the name of the bank. So the asset, the movable asset is used. And banks, with their favored customers, they use plant and machinery as part of the asset. I mean, it's not being done, it's not done as for right. But banks have their favored customers who they are willing to accept plant and machinery as movable property. And of course, rice. A lot of banks, I don't know if they do it these days, but a lot of banks would take the rice crop, the impending rice crop, as collateral for loans that they give to the rice farmers for them to buy their seeds and their fertilizers and so on to get the land and thing ready. So what the government is doing is nothing new, but I think they're trying to formalize an arrangement that is selectively used by the banks, selectively used. And because it's selectively used, you have another number of negatives that are involved. As I said, first of all, it's not available to every borrower, number one. Number two, because the risk increases with these movable property, then the interest rate that you will get also increase, right? You get a higher interest rate than you will normally get on regular loans. Of course, the banks are not going to take too long. I mean, a car, for example, on the road depreciates rapidly as opposed to a building standing permanently on land. So the payback period for the loans are short, right? And of course, you then have to be in an earning capacity that will allow you to pay back that loan at that high interest rate in that shortened period, right? And of course, these loans, because the people have to, they have to maybe investigate your character and all these kinds of story. The processing fee for such loans can be higher, right? For loans where they are going to be using their immovable property. And those who have taken who have taken loans from these banks to take out the motor car, they probably will be shaking their head and saying, yes, Mr. Jordan, we know what you are doing, and so forth. But commercial banks are not necessarily the business of taking all these fancy risks. As you know, governments to encourage such borrowing where people do not have movable assets, they will normally develop what they call development banks. Development banks to take that risk. And as you know, under the PNC Bonham regime, such a bank was created called GAI Bank, Guyana Cooperative Agricultural and Industrial Development Bank, which was what Parade and Barrack Street, Kingston, the headquarters was there. That's another building, that iconic building that is gone, has been broken down. And GAI Bank used to lend based on the same conditions that I talked about, where the people, they will take the machinery, the equipment, they will take the rice crop, advance payments and all kinds of stuff. But then the downside of all of that was the huge debts that were racked up by GAI Bank. Huge, enormous debts. And in fact, that's what crippled GAI Bank ultimately, crippled GAI Bank, the massive debts that were racked up. Because very often it is difficult to be keeping an eye on equipment. Today you see me, tomorrow you don't. A lot of loans were lent to people in the mining sector. You know, when today you see the tractor or whatever, tomorrow when you go back, it's disappeared. Or it's buried someplace, or it has moved someplace. And so now there's no collateral. And now you have to go sue that person. So technically that person has no money, because they've used their money to buy the different pieces of equipment and so on. These pieces of equipment has disappeared, or because of use, they have depreciated, right? And some of them have now become old because they didn't get the money to buy the spare parts, so they lie down and so on. So there are problems where there are huge problems where this is concerned. And I believe, notwithstanding this bill, there are still going to be issues at these commercial banks about lending, using movable property. You know, they said that they want to do this to help small businesses, especially small and medium businesses. While of course there are the disadvantages of this, I commend to the government a similar scheme that was put in place in Kenya. In Kenya, they have what is called the Movable Property Security Rights Act, MPSR. This act of 2017 defines movable assets as tangible and intangible, and creates a collateral registry to facilitate the registration of security interests in movables. Small and medium-sized enterprises and citizens can use intellectual property, such as patents, copyrights, trademarks, certificates for industrial design, etc., for securing credit facilities. They can also use goods, including vehicles, machinery, crops, and livestock. The Act also defines collateral as a movable asset that is subject to a security right, or a receivable that is subject to an outright transfer. You see, so that by establishing a framework for securing loans and using these movable assets, right, the Act will promote greater financial inclusion, and it will help to overcome some of the challenges associated with using movables as collateral. You see, as I said, this is a move in the right direction. But, and as I said also, I don't believe it will dramatically shift the needle of lending to small and medium sized businesses away from the provision of immovable assets to movable assets. I don't think it's going to shift the needle, but that doesn't mean it shouldn't be tried. I think what the problem, the bigger problem that there is when it comes to inclusion is or exclusion, whichever one you want to use in which area, is the non-financial factors. The non-financial factors. What accounts for the high incidence of exclusion of certain categories of borrowers in Guyana? And let us be blunt about these categories we're talking about. High on that list would be borrowers of African descent. And included on that list will be indigenous borrowers, women. Included in this list will be indigenous borrowers and women. Both African, Indian, indigenous, and others, but particularly and especially of African descent. There was a telling study that was done by an Indian person, Guyanese Indian. Her name was Caroline Shenaz Hussein. She was at York University at the time, and she did some work in Guyana. It's called the exclusion of Afro-Guyanese hucksters in micro banking. Right? This study, as I said, was done. I think it was published, I think, in 2014. In 2014, just before the year before the coalition would have come into power. And she interviewed 93 persons for this study, including 29 hucksters. And these interviews took place in November of 2008 and from April to May of 2010. And then she had some follow-ups in 2011. The selected area of study was all boys town for its mixed population that they have there. And she found she made some startling revelations, which we knew. But I'm happy that she of Indian descent, Guyanese of Indian descent, was able to do this study. You know why? Because she would have had access to information that I don't believe anybody else, but certainly of African descent, would have been able to get. Here are some of the things that she found. She said that educated Indo-Guyanese lenders admitted to their own personal biases against Afro-Guyanese as clients without remorse in the case study of the 93 people. She said that she argued in the study that micro banking managers and staff held on to historically rooted prejudices which interfere with the allocation of loans. She found a racialized hierarchy dominated by Indo-Guyanese limited Black people's access to economic resources. She referenced C.Y. Thomas's 1993 study, which found that Afro-Guyanese, regardless of their class, have a hard time getting a loan. And that was 1993 study. And this pervades the society of today as recent as the Terence Campbell case. You remember Terence Campbell?
Yes.
And when he talked about the difficulties of him not only getting a loan, but the fact that if you got the loan, it would have been at a higher interest rate than a colleague of Indian descent would have got it at. So that was 1993 study, and today it's still happening.
Of course.
She found that staff members held a racial bias combined with a class and gender bias, and that this affected their analysis of loan portfolios. These bankers claimed that Afro-Guyanese were a bad risk regardless of their education, profession, or economic status. She found that most of the Indo-Guyanese stakeholders and micro lenders interviewed made openly negative and or racist comments about Black business people, that they were not business-minded. And she argued in the study that as long as senior management refuses to recognize the existence of racial bias against Afro-Guyanese, especially of the women, there will be no will to create programming to tackle exclusion in financing. So that is a short, quick snapshot of what she found in 2014 and what still takes place to this day. And it's unfortunate that places like the Ethnic Relations Commission cannot commission studies of this nature in which we will be able to understand how pervasive the matter of exclusion of certain categories of people are in this society. But Kodaki, I'll perhaps look at this in somewhat more details later on, but I find the study to be extremely revealing, and those who should access it to read with some level of tears in your eyes of what takes place in this society and continues to take place. Perhaps it's got even worse, right? Anecdotally, but that is reality. Well, it's just after 9 and I have to conclude here. So thanks for again the opportunity, and I hope our listeners enjoyed it.
Thank you, Mr. Jordan. If you have a link to that study, you can share it with the viewers.
Yes, it's www.erlacs.org.
Thank you. I'm throwing it in the chat there. Good. So you're still tuned to the Guyanese Morning Time. It is 9 minutes. It is 5 minutes past the 9 o'clock hour. And you are still tuned. Yes. Thank you for tuning in, I should say. I'm sure that you've had a whole lot to digest this morning. And I do hope that you use this information that you receive here to guide your actions, and you not only listen and you internalize, but I hope you will share with the people around you so that more people become woke. That's all I want to say. That is all I want to say to you. And thank you for I saw somebody acknowledging the importance of the information presented on CAMS TV and the importance of CAMS TV itself as a medium for presenting this information. Thank you for that acknowledgement. And I want to encourage you to show your support by going over to the Cash App $ CAMS TV, drop your contribution there. And of course, those of you prefer Zelle, you can go 862-373-5187 in the name of your donor. Have a good one. Tomorrow is Free Talk Friday, and we'll continue to talk about those other things that you would wish to talk about. And I am almost sure I know some of the things I want to talk about, but I don't think that's in any of our interests. But we'll see what happens tomorrow. Much love. I threw the link for the report in the chat, www.erlacs.org, I think it is. Please go there and check it out.